Welcome everybody to another episode of Crappie Talk TV. Scott here with you. Got a good episode here today. We're actually going to break this into two different parts, okay? Just because of YouTube's time restraints. So, I got a question on Facebook the other day from a guy who had a phenomenal question. And I'm sure it's a question a lot of people have to some degree, is how do you approach a new lake? Okay, how do we approach a new lake? So I'm gonna break this down into 4 parts, obviously 2 parts per video. So you'll have to watch video 1 to know what I'm talking about in video 2, and then video 2 finishes it off. So talking about number 1, step 1 to going to a new lake and how to approach it. Okay, number 1, it starts before you ever go. Okay, if you have plans to go to a new lake, then you need to know as much as you can about the lake you're fixing to go to. Okay, now that succumbs a bunch of different information. Okay, so we're going to kind of walk through those pieces of information and why it's important. Number 1, if you don't already, you just heard of this lake or know of the lake and you know it's a great crappie lake or whatever the case may be, you need to know the layout of the lake. You know, what you're dealing with. You need, because that has a lot to do with how you fish it. Okay? So regardless what kind of lake it is, here in Oklahoma, we have roughly about 2 different kinds of lakes for the most part. We either have deep, what I call bluff lakes, which are going to be cleaner lakes that are built kind of in a hillside or a mountainside. Well, not really a mountain, but has a lot of high bluffs, a lot of deep water. Usually those tend to be your cleaner lakes or more clear lakes. And then we also have mudflat lakes, which are going to be a little more on the shallower side, a little more wide open, not as stringy and army and everything. But they tend to be on the dirtier, muddier side of the spectrum. And so we have both of those for the most part. That's kind of what our lakes are. So you need to know that information if you don't already. Okay? And then we start talking about, you need to know what has the weather been around the lake in the past, and what is it, up until what is it going to be when we get there. Okay? So just as an example, today is March 31st on a Tuesday. Okay? Let's say we have plans to go to Lake Eufaula on Saturday. Okay? I've never been to Lake Eufaula. Well, number 1, I find out, okay, Lake Eufaula is kind of a mudflat lake. It's a shallow lake. It's a big lake. But it's on the shallower end of a lake spectrum. Okay? But then I want to know the weather. Okay, so I can tell you that last week, they got some decent rain last week before this past weekend, and that the lake level's up about 7 foot, or it was last weekend. Now, a lot can change. They've been letting about, and I know this is another thing you need to know, because I know this, they were letting out this weekend about 35 to 40,000 cubic feet of water out of the dam. Okay, you need to know that. If the information is out there, you need to know how much of a drop is that going to be per hour, per 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours per day. And then what is their future projection on dropping that lake? Now, once you know as much of that kind of information as you can, then the next batch of information that you need to get, what's our water level like? What is our water temperature? Because that's going to tell you a lot about where the fish are at, as far as kind of the general depth that you need to try to target fish at. Do we need to be is it a little cooler? Maybe try to be out more on the main lake area or the mouth of a creek. Do we need to be, is it warmer? So are they kind of starting to move up into creeks a little bit, get into a little shallower water? Do we need to be fishing in 20 to 25 foot, 15 to 20? 8 to 12, 4 to 8, right on the bank. We need to know these things. And the water temperature is a big telltale sign about those things. But then we also want to know the weather broadcasted. Like I said, today's Tuesday. I want to know today's weather, what today's going to be like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and even Saturday when I'm going to go. Because that's going to tell me how things could possibly change. If we got a couple days between now and then that it could rain, then I want to pay attention to what the rainfall is going to be. There's a great app out there, weather app. It's called Mezzanate, okay? And you can look on there and pull up your entire state, and it will have a great breakdown of the rainfall by county, okay, by the county. And you can pull it up and look last hour all the way up to like the last 365 days, okay? So that's a lot of great information that you can use. So you need to know as much information about the lake, past, present, and future, as you can to get a good idea about where your attack area needs to be, where you need to be fishing as much as possible, okay? Now, that takes us into step number 2, and that is maps, looking at a lake map. There's 2 different ways you can do this, okay? Number 1, you can pull out a good old school paper map. Now, I believe it's Hot Maps has a great waterproof map out there that they produce, and they're great maps, got great detail. Just get it home one day or at the office, whatever, and just spread that sucker out and look at it. Look at, okay, if I think I need to be fishing from the mouth to the mid or back of a creek, I need to know what creeks look the best to me. You know, what creek, if we think, okay, we need to be in that 8 to 12 foot of water, let's just say, then what creek has that the most water like that? Is there any creeks that's maybe got some timber in it, got some structure, those kinds of things that are marked on a map, okay? And if you're going to use one of these maps, get a pen or a marker, something, and a notepad, and start making some notes. Make some notes that you yourself can take with you to the lake and follow those notes. And you can look on a lake map, coordinate that with your maps on your GPS or on your fish finders, and stay on track with that. The second thing you can do, which is what I prefer to do, and what I say is probably the best way and the easiest way to do it, is most of your fish locators have a app that you can download on your phone, on your tablet, that coordinate with the mapping technology on your units. So, just to give a couple examples, I know Lowrance has Navionics. They have a Navionics app, and then Garmin has the Active Captain app. Okay, so when you pull up those apps, you register your units on this app, and you can directly look at the maps that are on your locator. Now, the reason that I like this is, number 1, you can do it from the courtesy of an iPad or an iPhone, okay, or an Android, whatever. But what I also like about it is you can go on there and pre-plan your trip. Okay, if you've got limited time, if you're going down there for one day, you're going to drive down there, fish, come home, then you want to spend as much time fishing and less time searching. So you can go on there, mark waypoints, contour lines. You can do all kinds of things and make all kinds of marks on where you want to fish. And I always tell people, launch at the best boat ramp you can, and the closest boat ramp you can around where you want to fish. Now, sometimes you're going to have to make a little boat ride, and that's fine. But you want to spend less time driving your boat and more time fishing off your boat. So, if you have the capabilities with these apps, use them, because they're great tools to use, especially when you go to new lakes. Okay? So once you know step 1, then you can approach step 2 which is your mapping. Step 1 was our weather, what's the lake like, all that information. You take all that information, splatter it onto step 2. Now we know, okay, I need to be here, I need to be fishing these types of places on the lake. I want to try here, here, and here. I want to fish this creek, and this creek. Okay, I'm going to designate these 3 creeks. If I start smashing them in the first creek, then obviously the other 2 we'll work on another day. And you can locate these places on your maps and make notes, but you can correlate that and make a game plan and know, okay, when I get to the lake, I'm not just putting my boat on this lake blind. Because a lot of these lakes, you do have to be careful in places where you run wide open. Some of them, you go to, Texas, there's a lot of, stick ups, there's a lot of stumps, they have boat lanes. A lot of lakes here in Oklahoma are not like that, okay? They're wide open, clean, what I call clean, as far as they've been cleared out, bulldozed. There's not a bunch of stumps and stuff everywhere there is in the back of the creek, but there's not a lot of obstacles in wide open, the big middle of the lake that you have to worry about. So that's one of the reasons why you need to know as much about the lake you're going to as possible, so you know what to expect. One of the worst fears is when people go to a lake and they don't do their homework, and they end up having a horrific boat accident because they shouldn't have been running wide open, and you'd have thought, well, what's this big old stump bed doing out here in the big middle of the lake? Well, it's there. But if you looked at your map, you did your homework, you'd have known it was there. That's why when we're running, even if it's a lake we've fished at most, if not all our lives, we still run with our maps on. We still run with our maps. Stay as close to the creek channels as you can, because you never know. Especially like right now, we've been getting a bunch of rain, and if it's a lake that gets a bunch of runoff, they run a bunch of water out of the lake. You never know what could be floating in the lake, especially, or what could get hung up. It may be 10 feet, but a big old freaking tree can become floating down that lake and get stuck in that 10 foot. So you never know. You never know. You need to be safe. Rather be safe than sorry. So, that's step 1 and step 2 to answering these questions. So go over to the second video, and we're going to talk about step 3 and step 4.